Strategies for transformation is what we're discussing here at the London Book Fair Digital Conference. How do you see publishers transforming their businesses in the digital age?
Well, I think I'd question the question first, in that publishers have transformed their businesses over the last 20, 30 or 40 years, led by financial services, information, legal and tax publishers, scientific, technical, medical publishers, college textbook publishers, school book publishers have transformed their businesses. And I think...
But trade publishing less so, of course.
Trade publishing much less so. And I think we can learn a huge number of lessons from what's happened in these other adjacent, if not identical, industries. And I think some of the lessons we learn are that the new business models can be utterly different from the old ones, that the people you need to make those business models work can be utterly different from the old ones, that you should take risk, take chances, you have to invest, these things don't come free, but that the transformation has to affect every single bit of the business. There is absolutely no point creating digital bunkers, if you like, from production, from legal, from editorial, from marketing, sales, publicity. Every aspect is changing, and that's a real challenge.
Up until now, there's been a lot of digital innovation going on in publishing, but it's perhaps tended to be at the leading edge with specialist teams rather than at the core of the business. And I think that the challenge that a lot of publishers face is putting digital at the heart of what they do. I think it's about moving practically and conceptually from the ebook being the last thing that's done in the critical path to one of the first things that people are thinking about. That's something that will touch almost every department within the business. Certainly editors will be thinking much more about tagging and marking up books at the editorial stage. Production departments will see wholesale change. We'll see very significant change in how products are promoted digitally, and that promotion will be both promoting ebooks but also promoting physical books through digital channels. And then, finally, I think sort of commercial finance departments, royalties departments will have to get used to added complexity in their lives, keeping track of a wider range of products through a wider range of channels and ensuring that authors are appropriately paid for their work.
Readers of today and tomorrow, describe your imagined reader of tomorrow for us, and how close are we to tomorrow?
Well, I think it's becoming very, very close indeed. I think as we've seen by the announcement of the iPad and any number of other devices coming onto the market, the readers, in terms of the e-readers, are coming fast and furious. In terms of consumers and consumers as readers, that's another big change that I think we're going to see. I think people are changing the way they read. I think if you look on the tube right now in London, you don't see that many people reading dedicated e-readers, but I think you do see a lot of people reading on mobile phones and Blackberries. And the jump between a BlackBerry to an Kindle app on an iPhone or a Kindle or a Sony reader or an iPad, I think is actually going to be pretty close. So I think that there is going to be a significant shift in the not too distant future.
Do you think the iPad is going to be the iPod moment of publishing?
I think the iPad is generating a level of excitement that we haven't seen before.
Because it's Apple?
I think in part. I think there's undoubtedly a sort of a sex appeal to Apple's products.
If by an iPod moment you mean the moment that the music industry tipped from sort of physical to digital, I don't think the iPad is quite that. I think that the iPad is an extraordinary device. It's an exceptionally exciting device.
I think it's different than the iPod in that when the iPod came around, people had entire libraries of digital music at home in the form of their CDs. So they could take everything that they had, whether they went to a peer-to-peer file sharing site or not, they had CDs that they could immediately upload into the device. I think iPad and even Kindle, it's different in that people do need to go and buy our content, our ebooks. So that's good for publishers because we get to extract value out of that. But I think it does make adoption a bit slower in terms of e-reading because they can't immediately take their entire library and put it onto their device.
We're hearing a lot about ebook libraries and about cloud access. Tell me about Bloomsbury's Library Online, which you launched about a year ago now.
The starting point is, can we learn from previous experiences? And one of the successful experiences in publishing has been the creation of something called a site license, which science publishers use to distribute their journals electronically in universities via the university library. The idea of the public library online is to do the same for public libraries. So we've created a series of bookshelves, digital bookshelves, English history, sport, literary fiction, short stories, and a library can subscribe to that, and the data is held on a computer and people can view it through an internet-enabled device. They cannot download it, but they can view it. The payment method, the business model, is that the library pays in proportion to the number of people that they serve, and we charge 0.1 of a penny per person. So a library or group of libraries serving 250,000 people will pay £250 a year. That money is then divided up between the authors and ourselves in order to pay the marketing and everything else. That's how it works.
Do you think that we can help transform our readers faster if we bundle, say, hardbacks and ebooks together, so you can read the hardback at home on your bedside table or your coffee table, but what you read on the way to work is the ebook?
I think that's a great idea. I really do. I think that's one of many business models that will be coming down the pipe very soon. I don't think that will be a lasting one. I don't think that'll be a hugely significant one, but for a certain subset, I think that will be very appealing to them. I think that the nature of that kind of bundle actually may really boost hardcover sales, particularly for things like literary fiction, where we find it's very difficult to sell sizable numbers of hardcovers. I think that kind of audience might respond very well to being able to buy a hardcover, and then for a small additional fee, get an ebook version as well.
I mean, anecdotally, we're told that many people feel that ebooks are relatively expensive. The VAT element on ebooks isn't necessarily helpful there.
Now, accessibility is a major issue for the industry. Of course, for visually impaired readers of all ages, but particularly with an ageing population, ebooks open up a whole new world of possibilities and a whole new revenue stream for publishers. How do you think that's going to develop?
I think that this is a huge, huge opportunity. I think there's been a bit of a brouhaha around the devices and the extent to which the visually impaired can use some of the devices and text-to-speech and some of the other functionality that publishers have been a bit wary about. I think we will sort through those. There's no question that digital technology, both in changeable font size, in text-to-speech audio, the fact that a huge swath of our published works will now be available in larger type. The fact is that large print publishing historically was a very small slice of the available titles. So you got sort of the big name authors were available, but much of the mid-list and anything below that was not available at all. So I think that there still are some issues around the accessibility of the devices themselves,
sure.
But
which need to be simple, don't they? Because you're not talking about vision impaired necessarily. You may be talking about people who perhaps had a stroke and have a combination of dexterity problems and vision problems.
Exactly, but I think I'm not involved in any hardware project specifically.
No.
But I think that there's no doubt that this is a big opportunity for a hardware company to create a simple, voice-activated device that would basically enable people to purchase these files and to read them. And the beauty of it, the fact that we'll be making all of our books available as EPUB files, means that they're available digitally. So these devices, and EPUB is an interoperable with Adobe DRM or whatever DRM convention they're using, they'll be able to use it on these devices. So it may not be the device that's currently available today, but I think certainly there are companies who are working on devices that'll be even more user-friendly for the visually impaired.
What are you reading at the moment and in what form?
At the moment I'm reading an absolutely splendid book called Absinthe and Flamethrowers by a man called William Gustell, and it's a book about risk. It's a book about dangerous things and taking risks, and why actually, within some limits, that's a very good thing for us to do in our lives. And I'm reading it through Kindle. I'm reading it on my through the Kindle iPhone application, which I will praise to the rafters, because for me it's been a huge boon in my life to have rediscovered serendipitous reading. The 5 minutes that I claw back out of my day when I'm kept waiting somewhere, I can now pick up a book and pick it up on the page that I left off on my main Kindle, which now very rarely leaves the house. It's a joy.
I'm reading Inside Steve Jobs' Brain, the expanded edition.
His brain or the book?
Well, it's a business book looking at sort of the history of Apple, and I'm reading it on a Kindle, strangely enough. So I'm sort of going across two of the major companies in this space.
Major Pettigrew, which is a new novel by an English woman who lives in America. Keep your eyes open for it. And I've been reading it in print, printed in Australia by Allen and Unwin.